someone decided to make a game out of marriage. Whose wife would answer fastest? Whose wife would transfer the most money without asking questions? I lost, of course. Don't take it personally, Evan. Someone joked, Mrs. Sinclair may be cold, but at least she's rich. Laughter followed, easy and practiced. Everyone knew where the line was and stepped carefully around it. Audrey Sinclair and I had been together 7 years, yet she had never once brought up marriage. No one mentioned that when she gave company shares to the senior staff, I heard about it after everyone else did. No one mentioned that when I got diagnosed with stomach cancer, it was my best friend, Grant, who sat beside me at the hospital, not Audrey. I only smiled faintly. Then my eyes landed on Micah Brennan. I'll pass, he said. She's on a business trip. Busy. The air had already gone awkward, so I leaned over and tapped the speakerphone button for him with a smile meant to rescue him. At first, I thought no one would answer. Then the call connected and a soft, familiar female voice poured through the speaker. Babe, did you get the surprise gift for your work anniversary? The private room went dead silent. The first one to recover was Ben from operations. Damn, Micah, your girlfriend sounds amazing. He's crazy about you. Micah jolted so hard he almost dropped the phone. His fingers shook badly enough that it took him 2 tries to hang up. He kept his head down. My girlfriend likes using pet names. Oh, don't be shy, Jenny from HR said with a laugh that sounded forced. Her eyes flicked between Micah and me. I picked up my water glass and took a sip. The chill settled into my stomach with a familiar ache. Yeah, I said, lightly setting the glass down. That's sweet. Mrs. Sinclair is always so serious at work. Who knew she had such a soft side in private? Silence dropped again. It all worked with Audrey for years. Her voice was unmistakable. Micah looked up fast. Evan, you heard wrong. That wasn't Audrey. My girlfriend just sounds like her. He was panicking. I could see it in the way his fists clenched under the table. Maybe I did, I said, taking my time, wiping my mouth with a napkin. Miss Sinclair is supposed to be flying back from Oldenburg right now. I looked straight at him. My voice was steadier than I felt. Exactly. Someone jumped in too quickly. Audrey's in Oldenburg. Evan would know that better than anyone. People rushed to change the subject. Dinner dragged on in a haze of fake laughter and strained small talk. I left for the restroom halfway through and never came back. When the bill came, I checked my phone. A message from Audrey said on my lock screen. Just landed. Get some sleep. I stared at it until the words blurred. All I could hear was that syrupy babe repeating in my head. I locked the screen without replying. Outside, the early spring wind cut through my coat. Need a ride? Ben asked from his car window. I'll walk. Under the streetlights, my shadow stretched over the pavement. The pain in my stomach was sawing through me again. I stopped by a tree, dug painkillers out of my bag, and swallowed them dry. 7 years ago, Audrey had drunk herself into a stomach hemorrhage trying to land investors. I carried her to the hospital and stayed until dawn. She held my hand the whole time. Once the company stands on its own, she had whispered, I'm yours completely. The company was preparing for an IPO now, and she couldn't even give me the truth. My phone buzzed again, a bank alert. Audrey's supplementary card had just been charged $48,000 at a luxury watch boutique downtown. I stared at the number. I didn't even feel angry, just tired, bone-deep tired, as if the final piece had finally slid into place. The apartment was dark when I got home. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat on the couch and let the darkness cover me. At 2 a.m, the electronic lock beeped. Audrey walked in, smelling like wine and cold night air. She flipped on the light, saw me on the couch, and paused. Why are you sitting in the dark? You're still awake. Couldn't sleep. I watched her hang up her trench coat. How was Oldenburg? Her hand stopped for half a second. Fine. Back-to-back meetings all day. I'm exhausted. She came over, leaning toward me the way she always did. I shifted back just enough to avoid her. Her movement froze. What's wrong? Her brows drew together. Are you still upset about losing that stupid dinner game? Then her voice hardened. Evan, you're 30. Stop comparing yourself to new grads over meaningless things. I looked at her. You didn't go to Oldenburg? A flash of panic crossed her face. Who told you that? The trip was on the company calendar. She walked to the water dispenser and poured herself a glass. Micah's phone was on speaker. Tonight, she stopped drinking. A full 30 seconds passed before she sighed and turned around. Fine. Since you heard it, I won't hide it. I didn't go to Oldenburg. The flight was canceled. She sat down as if we were discussing weather. Micah had a bad day at work. He threatened to quit, and the project he's handling is finally taking off. Losing him now would hurt the company. As his boss, calming him down and giving him a gift isn't unreasonable. For a second, I barely recognized her. Since when does calming an employee down involve calling him babe? Audrey rubbed the bridge of her nose, already annoyed. Can you stop making something out of nothing? He just graduated. He's young, emotional, sensitive. I said a few sweet things to keep him from spiraling. It was an act. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a paper bag. I passed the sweet potato cart near campus and bought one for you. She placed it on the coffee table. You used to love these. Eat it while it's hot and stop being upset. She disappeared into the bathroom. I stared at the grease-stained bag. 7 years ago, when we had nothing, one sweet potato split in half was dinner. Now she had forgotten that last month I had been diagnosed with stomach cancer. The doctor had specifically forbidden food like this. Water ran in the bathroom. I walked to the coat rack. A strip of black ribbon peeked out from Audrey's coat pocket. I pulled it free. A certificate of authenticity, a custom luxury watch engraved on the back. S&B, Sinclair and Brennan. So that was the act. I put it back exactly where I found it. Then I picked up the sweet potato and dropped it into the trash. Landed with a dull thud. So did the last bit of hope I still had for her. The next morning, the atmosphere in the conference room was wrong. From the moment I walked in, Audrey sat at the head of the table with the quarterly report. Micah sat farther down in a tailored suit, a gleaming watch on his wrist. I made some adjustments to next quarter's project assignments, Audrey said. The clean energy deal Evan has been leading will be transferred to Micah. Silence. I had spent 3 months on that deal. It was days from closing, and the commission was practically mine. Miss Sinclair, that's not appropriate. Ben spoke up. Micah is still an intern. A project this size is beyond him. Audrey's expression cooled. If it's beyond him, Evan can guide him. Evan is one of the company's founders. Mentoring junior staff is part of his role. Then she looked at me. Any objection? I met her eyes and closed my notebook. None. She seemed pleased by how easily I gave in. Then it settled. Meeting adjourned. She left first. Micah came over carrying his files, smugness barely hidden. Evan, I'd really appreciate your guidance on this, of course. I pushed the documents toward him. Everything about the client is there. Read it yourself. I walked out before his expression could fully change. The moment I got into the bathroom, my stomach twisted violently. I barely made it to the sink before I vomited. When I looked down, blood spattered the white tile. For a second, I just stared. Then I turned on the faucet, rinsed the sink clean, and splashed cold water over my face. My phone rang. Grant, when the hell are you coming to the hospital? He demanded. The doctor said the tumor is spreading fast. You can't keep delaying surgery. I dry my hand slowly. Grant, I'm not doing the surgery. Silence. Then he exploded. Have you lost your mind? You're really throwing your life away for that woman. It's not about her. I looked at my reflection, gaunt, pale, almost unfamiliar. They'll remove 2/3 of my stomach, then chemo. It'll be ugly, miserable. I'd rather finish what time I have left with some dignity. On the other end, Grant went quiet. After I hung up, I returned to my desk and saw Audrey's message to my office. She was standing by the windows when I entered, coffee in hand. Are you angry about the meeting? She asked. She stepped closer and reached to straighten my tie the way she always did. I moved back. Her hand fell short again. Evan, you've been cold lately. I gave Micah the deal because his family is struggling and he needs the money. You have company equity. You won't miss one commission. And came the final blow. You're a man. Be generous. Don't be petty with a kid fresh out of school. I looked at her calm, superior face. Fine, I said. I won't. Then I asked, are you free next Wednesday? She blinked and opened her calendar. Morning's full. Afternoon is open. Why? I need to go to Ridgemont General. There's a form that needs a family member's signature. Legally, she wasn't my family, but in my heart, she had been the only one. Audrey relaxed at once. The hospital, so you're finally getting that stomach polyp taken care of. She still thought I was the Evan from last year. Sure, she said. I'll go with you Wednesday afternoon. Good. I didn't correct her. I just turned and left. Over the next few days, I finished every handover in silence. I watched Audrey and Micah move through the company I had built with her. And for the first time, I felt like a stranger inside it. On Wednesday, I sat alone on a bench in Ridgemont General's impatient wing at 1 in the afternoon. The smell of disinfectant burned my nose. The pain came in waves. By 2:30, Audrey still hadn't arrived. I called her straight to voicemail. I lowered the phone and stared down the empty corridor. Micah had never removed me from his close friends list. On Instagram, his new story was posted 20 minutes earlier. My silly girlfriend skipped a $100 million meeting just to hold my hand, while I get my wisdom teeth pulled. The photo showed an upscale private dental clinic. In one corner, half visible was the back of a woman in a tailored designer suit. I had looked at that silhouette for 7 years. The screen dimmed in my hand. Your family still hasn't come, my attending physician asked. This form authorizes the switch from active treatment to palliative care. I need an immediate family member or legal representative. I don't have family. I sat at his desk, took out my ID and the waiver I had prepared, and signed every document meant for next of kin. My handwriting never shook. Afterward, I took a taxi back to the apartment Audrey and I had shared for 3 years. I packed almost nothing, a few old clothes, a journal from 7 years ago. Before leaving, I placed the spare key on the coffee table. Beside it, I left a brown envelope. Inside was a signed agreement returning my 1% equity stake. Then I took my suitcase and walked out. At 11 that night, Audrey came home. Evan, I'm back, he called. Automatically, silence answered. Frowning, she walked into the living room and saw the envelope. She tore it open. The first page was the equity return agreement. She gave a short, cold laugh, clearly assuming this was another one of my protests. Then she pulled out the second page. Her eyes dropped to the report from Ridgemont General. At the bottom, in stark black letters, was the diagnosis she had never bothered to learn. Stage for gastric adenocarcinoma. Her fingers tightened, then her phone lit up. Ridgemont General. Audrey answered, and the doctor's voice came through low and urgent. Mr. Caldwell has listed you as his emergency contact. He left after signing Endorph Life documents himself. If you know where he is, tell us immediately. From somewhere outside the apartment door, the elevator down the hall gave a soft ding. The folder slipped from Audrey's hands. For the first time in years, the always composed Sylvia looked genuinely afraid. What did you say? Mr. Caldwell declined curative treatment, the doctor repeated. He signed palliative care documents this afternoon. We need to locate him. The call ended. Audrey stood frozen. Stage 4. Not a stomach polyp. Stage for cancer. Her eyes slowly drifted to the untouched sweet potato still sitting in the kitchen trash. Last month, he had tried to tell her something while she was replying to Micah's messages. She hadn't looked up once. Her hands began shaking. She called Evan. Powered off. Again. Powered off. Again. Powered off. For the first time in 7 years, panic overwhelmed every bit of logic she had. She grabbed her keys and drove through the city like a madwoman. Hospital, Grant, old apartment, coffee shop, every place Evan liked. Nothing. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the balcony of a quiet seaside hotel nearly 2 hours away. Grant walked out carrying 2 coffees. You really disappeared. I left a forwarding address with my lawyer. So she can find you? No. I accepted the coffee. So she can receive the lawsuit. Grant blinked. Lawsuit. I audited the company's books before I left. I handed him a flash drive. The clean energy project wasn't the only thing Audrey transferred to Micah. Grant opened the files. His expression changed immediately. Jesus. Expense reimbursements. Fake consulting fees. Luxury gifts charged as employee retention. Company funds quietly diverted for Micah's personal expenses. Nothing individually catastrophic. Together? Enough to trigger an investigation before the IPO. You planned all this? I smiled faintly. I built that company. You think I don't know where every dollar went? The next morning, Sinclair Technologies held its final pre-IPO compliance review. Audrey entered the boardroom exhausted. She hadn't slept. Halfway through the meeting, the chief financial officer cleared his throat. We've received an anonymous report. The projector lit up. Receipt after receipt. Watch purchases, private vacations, luxury restaurants, personal spending hidden inside company accounts. Then, a photograph. Micah wearing the engraved watch. S&B. The room went silent. One board member looked at Audrey. Care to explain why company funds bought a custom luxury watch for an intern? Micah's face turned white. Another document appeared. Security footage timestamps. Audrey canceling her Oldenburg flight. Checking into a luxury hotel. With Micah. The chairman slowly removed his glasses. The IPO is suspended immediately. Outside the conference room, reporters were already gathering. Someone had leaked everything. Shares on the secondary market collapsed. Major investors withdrew. Banks froze negotiations. Within 48 hours, 7 years of Audrey's work began crumbling. Micah didn't stay loyal for long. The moment investigators questioned him, he blamed Audrey for everything. She pursued me. She bought all the gifts. I was afraid to reject my boss. He even produced dozens of romantic messages, most of them from Audrey. Audrey stared at him across the investigation room. You? Micah wouldn't even meet her eyes. I'm sorry. No, she whispered. You're saving yourself. That evening, Audrey finally called Grant. Where is Evan? I don't know. You do. I don't. You've always covered for him. Grant laughed. No, I covered for you. Silence. You know who sat with him through every chemotherapy consultation? Me. You know who picked him up after biopsies because you were having dinner with Micah? Me. You know who knew he was vomiting blood? Me. Grant's voice became ice. The only thing you ever knew about Evan was that he'd always forgive you. He hung up. 3 weeks later, the investigation officially named Audrey responsible for corporate misconduct. She was forced to resign as CEO. The IPO was canceled indefinitely. Her reputation was destroyed overnight. Companies that once competed to recruit her wouldn't return her calls. Micah quietly accepted a settlement deal in exchange for testimony. Then he vanished. He even sold the engraved watch online. When Audrey found the listing by accident, she stared at it for nearly an hour. The description read simply, "Unwanted gift." She laughed, then cried so hard she couldn't breathe. As for me, Grant rented a small cottage overlooking the ocean. Some mornings I could barely get out of bed. Other mornings we watched the sunrise together. There were no meetings, no spreadsheets, no pretending, just peace. One evening Grant handed me a familiar leather journal. You forgot to finish the last page. I opened it. 7 years earlier. In messy handwriting. Goals before turning 30. Marry Audrey. Travel together. Grow old together. I smiled, then crossed out every line. On the blank page underneath, I wrote only one sentence. Live whatever time remains for myself. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like giving up. It felt like finally being free.